I believe that humans don't have that natural right to actually stake out the land territories for their own and deprive others for it. However, I also do believe that humans have this innate instinct to actually take something so that they may survive. Because humans have this idea that, of course, they would have to survive, and for that to happen, they have to seek out everything that they can in order to support that idea of survival. However, in this case, if we're strictly talking about the rights of an individual or of a state, I don't really think that that right of having to take someone else's land or having to take a disputed territory and depriving another person or another individual or another state of that said land, I don't think it's right to actually call that something of a privilege or something of a right.
I think we had that right back then, not anymore in this modern day and age because of international law. People started seeking out ways to find peace. And in return, it actually in turn gave more reasons for different countries to find more things to throw at each other for war, like resources, everything. Back then, we could have like claimed the territory for our own. Not anymore, because the places in this world today are already named, discovered, everything. Almost everywhere is already there's already civilization and society everywhere.
Apparently, I'm not sure what to believe because in China, I mean, basically what they know, what they're talking about or teaching to the people is that they own the land. Of course, here in the Philippines too, that whenever, as Filipinos, we're here in the Philippines, we educate some of our people or we tell them that this land is ours. So, it may be impossible for it to agree on something because the Philippines says this, the China says that. And back to the question, I still believe that not deprive others of resources, but if it's stated in our constitution that this is our land, if you want to get something from this land, it can be talked about it. But the word deprive, I don't kind of agree that humans should deprive resources to other people because we live in one earth.
I think that even if the Spratly Islands did not contain that much resources that is theoretically there, I think that there would still be this entire dispute with regards to who owns that specific territory. It's not merely just the idea of having to take oil or gas or the fishing areas in that region. I think it's more on playing about power and playing about who is the more powerful state or who's the most powerful country. Because with China's case, it's trying to establish itself as the world superpower. Therefore, it is actually doing this just to show the United States, just to show the United Nations that it will do what it wants, whenever it wants, just because it can. As for the Philippines, I think that it just feels threatened by the idea because seeing that Spratly Islands is less than 800 kilometers away from the shores of Palawan and the shores of Luzon, it's really a big threat. Therefore, even though there are, hypothetically, if there are no natural resources in that region, the idea of playing with superpowers or playing with the power that a country has would still take into effect. Therefore, it would still create that dispute over that territory.
I don't think they'd fight over that island if it didn't have any kind of value. Like, it does have rich sources. They'd use that for the development of their country. If it didn't have, then why would you fight for it? It wouldn't even be worth it.
The territorial dispute over the two countries between this specific island, well, basically this island is well known for it contains so much resource that many countries actually need, especially Philippines and China. Also, especially that this island is really between Philippines and China. And to answer the question, I think if the island would not have this much of the resources, I really believe that this issue wouldn't arise. Like China wouldn't really threaten the Philippines, or the Philippines wouldn't defend. Like this is our country. No, it's really usually about the resource.
If I were the leader of one of the countries, or in this context, the Philippines, I would still push forth the idea of having multilateral arbitrations with the United Nations. However, I wouldn't do it in a way with what the Philippines is doing, because what the Philippines is doing right now is that it's denying that it has had a treaty with China before. However, in 2007 or 2001, I can't remember the exact date, there was a treaty between the Philippines and China that they would only resolve this dispute through bilateral relations. However, as the Philippines is not getting what it wants, it actually resorted to multilateral arbitrations. And that's perfectly fine, that's perfectly legal. I think that the Philippines should still push for this. It should still push for multilateral arbitration, because it would damage China's ego. It would damage the idea of China that it can take whatever it wants. And with that, it could have its own reality check on how it's dealing with this issue. And having a multilateral arbitration with this kind of issue would actually create better awareness or all over the world, for all the states in the world, that this thing, even in the 21st century, it's still actually happening. And that even though we somehow live in what they call a globalized world, there are still states who have huge differences in what they believe in. And you have to have other people arbitrating that, other states arbitrating that, because clearly if you're on different sides of the pole, then you can't really meet halfway. That's the purpose of having these multilateral arbitrations. So that even if one state does not agree with what you're saying, you have that middleman who would actually help reconcile your differences in order for you to have a more diplomatic way of settling the dispute.
I'd rather not be put in charge on something so complex.
If I were in charge about this dispute, honestly, I wouldn't know what to do, because I'm not really familiar with these kinds of issues. And in addition, I'm not really a born leader. And in my opinion, as a Filipino, in my opinion, what the Philippines has been teaching me is that we own the island itself. We apparently have a map. It even says something like Philippine economic zone or something like that, and it covers the island within the Philippines. And logically, the island is nearer, but China says that it's theirs, so I wouldn't really know.
Personally, I would think that it's actually a great idea. The idea of having a resource-based economy is actually a really wonderful idea, because you would actually create somehow, hypothetically, you would create equal opportunities for all people, that they could own this much land, that they can actually have their own food, because the land belongs to everyone. So that the idea of proprietorship would then be somehow abolished. But even hypothetically, yes, I do support it. However, there are things that come to my mind when I actually absorb it. Because to me, it seems like since it's going to be free for all, then there's gonna be some conflicts because you're gonna interact with other people. You're gonna interact with them with resources that is, as the idea states, resources that are free for all. And even if we believe in the innate goodness of mankind, there are still people who would want to take over that entire place, who would want to make profits, who would want to capitalize on these resources for their own personal gains. So even if the idea is really, really wonderful, and I think it might solve some social problems such as poverty and the idea of having rich capitalists controlling everyone and having 1% of the population controlling 51% of the economy of the entire world. I think that this idea is good, but it does pose some problems with regards to having to interact with other people who you have differences with regards to having to interact with people who have that nature of capitalizing and using things for their own good, with regards to the people who don't necessarily understand how that would work. Because even if you provide them the resources, if they don't really know what to do with it, if they don't really understand what to do with arable land, what to do with clean water, if they don't understand that, then I think the idea wouldn't be that much of success. So I think that the idea is wonderful, but it needs to be aided as well with education and the change in the ideologies of people through different cultures, which I think would be the biggest hurdle of all.
I'd want a world like this to be achieved, something like that. But only if people permit such something like that. Like people are afraid of change because they don't trust other people. It's hard to trust. No, I don't blame them, but they don't press on, like move forward and learn to accept something that is actually really possible scientifically. Then we need to overcome those trials. Problem is with the people, not the way to change other people.
Speaking about the resource-based economy, I would support it in terms that this would help everyone on Earth, and every leader, that this would help in terms of settling things as democratic as possible, or as humanly as possible, the human leader. No wars, no disputes. Everyone gets the equal amount, or anyone can get anything from anywhere. But in the side of not supporting the resource-based economy, a little history, humans have been territorial since the Middle Ages, the Stone Age. The Spaniards invading other countries, and it's been like a human nature too, that sometimes greed can always overcome someone. Then if it be a leader that has been overcome with greed, he can just start a war because for his own greed or for the country's greed. But ultimately, I have two answers. I support this resource-based economy because of, no more wars or anything. But on the other hand, I kind of not support it because we still don't know what will really happen. Because we haven't really mastered what will happen if this happens. Maybe people might be living in a different lifestyle. We still don't know. But it's a good start to test on what alternative way we can settle this never-ending dispute between other countries and resources in the planet.